Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Gamefound, Awaken Realms, Lords of Ragnarok. Let's talk. Now, I already did sort of a should you back on this. I've already looked at the rules a little bit, but let's go and swing things the other way, right? 5 reasons that you should not back this game. Again, not saying that this is going to be a bad game. That is not going to be on these lists ever. Bad game is not an option. I mean, it's not. But 5 reasons that this game may not be right for you. That is what's important. Is it right for you? And how you spend your money. Let's take a look. This is Lords of Ragnarok. Well over €1,000,000. A combination of daily unlocks plus some now monetary stretch goals. It is a sci-fi Norse area influence majority style game in lines of the spiritual succession of Lords of Hellas from previously Awaken Realms. Now, this is going to be a very interesting game. This is a very interesting test point. Awaken Realms puts out a very high quality product that is miniature driven. Not miniature focused as some of the other companies do, but miniature driven in the sense that there are going to be miniatures included. The nice thing is that they do not pledge lock all of the miniatures into the gameplay side of things. So if you do not want as much miniatures, they will often allow you not to have to worry about that. Now, that out of the way. What is point number 1 on why you should not back this? Frankly speaking, talking from personal experience here, personal feelings, area control, area influence, area majority, like I said in the opening statement. If you are not a big fan of this mechanism in general, as pretty as these miniatures are, as awesome as this art is to look at, as many people are telling you that this is going to be a great game and all of this stuff is going to be so worth it for the core pledge of, whatever euros it is at this point. This game is not going to change your opinion, probably. There are other games out there that are easier to get to the table. There are other things out there that may be better at that, and we'll talk to that because that's spoilers point number 2. But this is not going to change it. Having read through the rules, this is at its core that in a nutshell. Now it gives you 2 or 3 different ways to do it, and it says you can change around the monsters and the heroes that are going to allow you to interact and what they're going to do during it. But this is still the very much core element of this game. See this map? See all the figures on the map? That is going to be what it is in a nutshell. There's going to be other little things to go along with it, to spice it up, to make it different, to give replayability and some variability each time you do it, as if, player own decisions aren't going to be enough in that regard. So there's going to be enough from that side of things, but that is what it is. And you need to realize it is what it is. It's not necessarily trying to be anything else, although you can make a slight argument for that because it is incorporating some battling and some card-driven combo system in terms of fighting the monsters or fighting the other players. There is some take that in that sense. There is a little bit of worker placement-esque, you're placing your priests, you're placing your, there's a little bit of that, but at its core, it is still that. So if you are not a big fan of this mechanism, I don't think it's going to change your mind. That leads me to point number 2. If you really want to like this game and are unsure about how you feel about area majority, area influence, the core pledge is €99. So what, like $120 or so right now, US dollars-ish, 115, whatever it is. Let's take a minute. Let's take a breather. Let's stop off the hype train for just 30 seconds and go with me on a side route and look at all of the other games that are so highly rated with this as a mechanism. Now, all of these are not purely that, but you have other significant games that have stood the test of time that have, even if time is 3 years, that use this mechanism that are good or remarkably very, 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 very well thought of in that regard. I'm looking at you, El Grande, in that sense, that use this mechanism in a hybrid way, similar to Lords of Ragnarok, without having to spend 115 US dollars before shipping to get it, to play it. You can buy an out-of-print copy of El Grande with all the expansions for that much. A game that no one is going to question whether or not it is a good game. You can also probably get it, within the next week or month even, let alone a lot longer. So, all of these other games use this mechanism. All of these other games are highly, highly ranked and highly, highly well thought of. So if you're looking for something in that ilk, you're best to go elsewhere, because you can probably get multiple of this, get a complete game, not feel like you need expansions, and still be fine. Now, going back to this value of this core pledge, I'll flat out tell you, this is always the best value. Awakened Realms always makes this the best value with all the stretch goals and the unlocks and things that you get. But they also add a whole lot of other stuff too. There's one stretch goal expansion right now. This terrain expansion, and then now we have this Giants expansion with more miniatures, more boxes, more space. How many of these do you need? How many games with 6 expansions do you need? And this is point number 3. Because, again, it goes to the bloat. And in this particular case, and what I worry about in this case sort of ties into the next point too, and you'll understand that in a second. But this is the case that you are getting more and more and more to feel like you're getting a complete game. You're getting the complete experience if you don't have the enhance, the terrain, and the extra expansion. If you pick up just the core box of things, not the stretch goals, but just the core box at retail, is it going to feel like a complete experience? Or are you being driven by FOMO? Look at Nemesis. People argue right now, a couple years out from Nemesis, that Nemesis is best. Best. The majority of people argue that it is best just with the core box. Doesn't need anything else. It's nice. You can add a few other trinkets in from the other things if you really want. But that is the best experience, period. So if you're looking for the best experience, again, you might be better off with not needing a lot of this other stuff. And tying right into the Awakened Realms side of things is, again, the bloat. The concern that goes along with bloat is balance. Along with balance goes with QA. And I'm looking at you, Etherfields, which is still yet to deliver Wave 2, which is redoing a good portion of Wave 1 as well. That is now, 2 years out plus? And they're already telling you, not having delivered that, as well as ISS Vanguard, that you're going to have split wave shipping, that they're saying the second wave may be to you in a year and a half. It's not going to be to you in a year and a half, folks. If you've got ISS Vanguard and all of the second wave of Etherfield, or the combined shipping like I did, still on the press. Because as much as you can dedicate resources to elsewhere, it's still probably going to be in that order. And if there's a delay in one, it's going to have a ripple down effect. It's going to have a ripple down effect. May not be in a big way, may be split in terms of divisions and labor, but there's going to be some carryover. And so this game, there's a good chance that, if something goes wrong, or if shipping continues to be a cluster like it is now, could you be looking at the end of 2023? Forbid it actually be even further at the beginning of 2024 and be 2.5 years out. That's a long time. And that is point 4 at this point. And the bloat and the balance concerns are point 4. Because when you have this much stuff, when you have this many monsters, when you've got rule books previously that have not really stood up very well at a retail mass consumer side of things, how is the balance and just the quality control going to look like? They really need to hire somebody to take a look at the rule book and say, this is what you should be doing with it. Because, I mean, again, Etherfields, Tainted Grail, Nemesis, even Lords of Hellas. I mean, none of those anyone is going to argue probably with me. I mean, probably someone will, but no one would probably argue with me with great ferocity that those are great rule books, right? None of those are terribly easy to learn from. They're okay. Some are slightly better than others. But when you think of great rule books, do any of those games pop immediately to the top of your list? And so if that's going to be on the rules side of things, I have concerns about it being on the expansion side of things too. When you are saying I'm going to have increased variability, when I'm going to give you more and more and more with multiple victory conditions, how is that going to affect the balance? Is it going to turn into a slog? Is it going to turn into, I mean, the biggest fear with a game like this is that it's going to turn into a Munchkin area majority influence style of game where you've got this perpetual lock and the game should be about 2 hours, ends up going 4. Hellas definitely leaned people towards one way of a victory condition rather than others. And now they've tried to introduce the Ragnarok condition to do that too, but what if you don't want to trigger the Ragnarok? What if people are purposely avoiding triggering Ragnarok to end the game? Is this going to work from that side of things?
And honestly, we don't know. That is a huge question mark. And that goes back to point number 2 where, go get one of these where you don't have to worry about that being a question.
It's a fair, I'll see what happens and bide my time. And, if I have to pay a little bit more on the secondary market, so be it. If this turns out to be one of those other ones. The last point is just that. The shipping. Can you afford, are you willing to tie up this much money for 2+ years? Again, you got plenty of other games to play between now and then. But 2 years from now, especially if you are newer in the hobby, because this happened to me multiple times. Are you going to have the same tastes now in terms of games, in terms of mechanisms, in terms of style, in terms of play group that you do now? Because that could be a big if in some of these situations. Are you going to have a core play group that loves playing area majority influence? What if your core group changes? Now all of a sudden everybody plays worker placement. What if you find that you all of a sudden got Blood Rage and Rising Sun and Enos and you don't like any of them? Oh, you've got this money tied up. Should you try and get a refund and back out of it? Or are you going to hope that this is the magical one that fills that void of area majority influence hole in your heart that none others have been able to fill at this point? Right? We're all looking for that. Do you think this one's actually going to be that one or not? And are you willing to wait 2 years to find out with all of those other variables at play in addition? That's the question. And if you are, hey, you know what? Go for it. Again, the core pledge of this is a great value. If you are worried about losing money, I mean, you buy the core pledge, you'll sell the core pledge for more money than what you paid for it. That is pretty much true of Awakened Realms, Simon, these big miniature driven companies with a very solid reputation in terms of just being solid games, maybe not excellent, definitely not poor, but just solid. You will get your money back. You'll probably make a little bit. So if that's your biggest concern, go ahead and back it and, forget about it and ignore all of the other points that I just made. Don't worry about it. But I mean, it's also, you're going to make, $20-$30. So it's probably not like you're going to be breaking bank either. Unless this turns out to be the best game of 2021, 2020, and maybe 2022. Well, then, yeah, maybe you might make, $100. Might make $100. That sounds like a lot, but you can go and do a lot of other things to make $100 nowadays, too, in the short time. So just putting some perspective out there. Overall, I mean, like I said, I don't have any concerns about delivery. I don't have any concerns about it's going to be solid. But is it going to be right for you? Are you just going to turn around and flip it because of any of those reasons that I just mentioned? So I want you to buy things that are right for you that you will play. So there you go. That is the last most important point that I can reiterate time in, time again. Buy right for you. Don't buy because other people are buying this tidal wave of people and you're trying to catch up with the FOMO and don't let it crash down on you. and make you feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses. You don't. I feel like it too as a person who makes videos, that I got to have stuff out, that I got to have stuff that looks a certain way, and I got to be a certain way, and I got to act a certain way. And you know what? Same thing's true on both sides of things. Do you, if you're happy not having it and you feel good about that, feel good about that. If you want it and it lines up with all of your interests and all of your group's interests and you are okay with all of those things, go ahead and get it. But don't buy it because someone else just tells you to, or you have an image in your head of what it might be. So, just words of board gaming advice. A little too preachy there at the end, I know, I'm sorry. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. See you around.